Amelia Badelia cleans up. Chapter 1. Breezy? Yes. Easy? No. Amelia Badelia was as free as a bird. She was pedaling her bike as fast as she could. The wind was blowing in her face and blowing her hair straight back. Now she understood why. Finally, her dog loved to hang her head out of the car window on trips. Amelia Bedelia really wished that every day was this easy and breezy. Today she was riding all over town with her friends, Holly and Heather. They zipped through the park, zooming past babies in strollers and woofing at the dogs out for a walk. The dogs woofed right back. "Let's go this way," shouted Holly. "Follow me," yelled Heather. Amelia Bedelia raced after her friends. As she rode, she imagined changing her name to Amelia Brasilia Club President. Amelia Brasilia Club President. She had been the president for about 10 minutes. Most clubs come with leaders and followers, with a bunch of rules and regulations. But this club was so new that it didn't even have a name. It had been born in Amelia Bedelia's backyard with Holly and Heather, had stopped by an hour earlier. "I'm bored," Holly said. "Me too," said Heather. "We've got bikes," said Amelia Bedelia. "Let's go exploring. We can start an explorers club." "Not just exploring," said Heather. "Let's have adventures." "Let's make it our job to have adventures," said Holly. "Let's start the Explorers Adventure Club," said Heather. "How about the Adventuring Explorers Club?" said Holly. Amelia Bedelia just wanted to stop talking and get going, so she made a suggestion. "Let's call it our club until we come up with a good name, and let's have a rule. One rule." "What rule?" asked Holly. "No being bored," said Amelia Bedelia. "Yes," said Holly and Heather together. "That's settled," said Holly. "Now we need to choose a president." "I vote for me," said Heather. "I vote for me too," said Holly. They turned to Amelia Bedelia to cast the tie-breaking vote. "You're leaving me no choice," said Amelia Bedelia. "I have to vote for the smartest, prettiest, most adventurous explorer I know." Holly and Heather looked at each other. Then they looked back at Amelia Bedelia. Then they asked, "Who?" "Me," said Amelia Bedelia. They all fell over laughing. "But can we really all be president at the same time?" asked Holly, still giggling. "We should rotate," said Heather. "Sure," said Amelia Bedelia. She stood up, turned around in a circle, then sat back down. "My dog does that when he comes to a room and sits." "I mean," said Heather, "we should take turns." "Okay, you're next," Amelia Bedelia said. Holly and Heather stood up, turned in a circle, and sat back down. Then they all fell against each other, laughing some more. Heather stopped giggling long enough to ask, "Where should our club meet?" "We could meet here in my backyard," said Amelia Bedelia. "But we're an explorers club," said Holly. "We have to get out and see new places." "Do new things," agreed Heather. "Find a cool clubhouse," said Amelia Bedelia. "Yeah," said Holly. "Where we can relax and hang out." They all went back to thinking. Heather and Holly were thinking about where they could build a clubhouse. Amelia Bedelia was wondering what was so relaxing about hanging out laundry. "Hey," she said suddenly, "what is our club all about?" "Having adventures," said Heather. "Right," said Amelia Bedelia. "So let's have an adventure. Let's go exploring and discover a clubhouse." No one had to say another word. They jumped on their bikes and away they went. Their adventure took them all over town, but they didn't find any place that seemed just right for a clubhouse. Finally, they turned back toward home. Amelia Bedelia was bringing up the rear as they biked down Pleasant Street in the oldest neighborhood in town. She slowed down to gaze at the largest house. It was 3 stories tall, with skinny windows covered with dark curtains. The paint was peeling, the roof was sagging, and one window on the top floor was cracked. A black cat sat on the front steps and narrowed yellow eyes at Amelia Bedelia as she rode by. It looked exactly like a haunted house on TV. Amelia Badelia pedaled faster to get past it and catch up with Holly and Heather. Her two friends were way ahead, about to turn left. Next to the spooky house was a large vacant lot with an enormous oak tree in the center. Holly and Heather disappeared around the corner. That was when Amelia Bedelia made an adventurous decision. Making a sharp left turn, she jumped the curb and headed straight into the vacant lot to cut across it diagonally. If she raced through the lot, she could catch up with Holly and Heather. It was tough to keep her bike rolling over lumpy dirt and knee-high grass, but Amelia Bedelia just pedaled harder. In a few seconds, she would burst out of the bushes ahead of Holly and Heather. Just as she stood up on her pedals to go as fast as possible, her front tire wedged between a rock and a branch. The front wheel of the bike stopped, but when her back wheel kept on going, so did Amelia Bedelia, sailing over her handlebars. She felt the wind rushing past her ears. Time seemed to slow down as if she were watching herself in slow motion. Soaring free as a bird, flying upside down, certainly it was breezy, she thought. But Amelia Bedelia knew that her landing was not going to be easy. Chapter 2. Happy Landing. Amelia Bedelia rolled over and opened her eyes. She was lying flat on her back. Out of her right eye, she saw a bright blue sky. Her left eye was looking up into an enormous canopy of green leaves. She had flown for just a few seconds, but here she was looking at the same thing every bird looks at every day. Blue sky to soar through and branches to rest on. She checked herself over to see if anything was broken. She knew that her two eyes still worked. She lifted her right arm, then her left arm. Okay so far. She lifted her left leg and then her right one. Check. Slowly, she sat up and looked around. She was in much better shape than her bike. Her bike was busted. The front wheel was twisted into something like a figure eight. Amelia Bedelia, shouted Heather. Amelia Bedelia, shouted Holly. She could hear them, so Amelia Bedelia figured that her ears must be okay too. She answered, over here. Heather and Holly dropped their bikes on the sidewalk and came running through the empty lot. When they saw Amelia Bedelia next to her crunched bike, they hurried to kneel down beside her. Are you okay? Said Holly. Why did you ride through this junky lot? Heather asked. I was trying to take a shortcut, answered Amelia Bedelia. She looked at her left knee. It was scraped. She looked at her right elbow. It was bloody. Only I'm the only one who got cut, she added. From now on, I'm taking only long cuts. Maybe that didn't sound very adventurous, but it would be safer. We would have waited for you, said Heather. You're lucky you didn't get really hurt, said Holly. You could have landed on this. She held up something that looked like a rusty giant corkscrew. Or that, said Heather. She pointed to a board with nails in it. There was junk everywhere. Amelia Bedelia hadn't seen it when she decided to ride through the empty lot, because the long grass and scrubby bushes hid all the trash. But it was all there, all right. Yikes, said Holly. Maybe adventure isn't all it's cracked up to be. My bike helmet isn't cracked either, said Amelia Bedelia. She took it off and patted it affectionately. I'm glad I had it on. Holly helped Amelia Bedelia get to her feet. Amelia Bedelia hopped a few steps and decided that her sore knee was not too bad. She could walk on it. And that was good, because it looked like she would have to walk home. Let's go, said Heather. I don't like this old lot and this spooky house. You don't like the lot? Asked Amelia Bedelia. But it's perfect. She looked around. So did her friends. They saw tall grass, big rocks, broken bricks, crumbling cinder blocks, empty cans, bits of metals, twist of wire, old tires, falling apart chairs, and a giant oak tree. Amelia Bedelia limped to the tree. The trunk was so wide her arms could not reach all the way around it. It was so tall that it rose above the houses on either side of the lot. The leaves and branches were so thick that when Amelia Bedelia tipped her head back, she could not see the sky. Perfect, asked Holly. Perfect for what? Perfect for our new clubhouse, said Amelia Bedelia. Our Explorers Clubhouse. Heather looked at Holly. Holly looked at Heather. Heather and Holly both looked at Amelia Bedelia. "Maybe you'd better sit back down," said Holly. "I think you might have hit your head harder than you thought. Are you sure your helmet isn't cracked?" "I am fine," said Amelia Bedelia, "and so is my helmet. And so is this tree. This is where we should have our clubhouse. A tree house clubhouse." Holly looked up. So did Heather. Holly started to grin. So did Heather. "We could get up and down with the ladder," said Holly. "What about climbing a rope?" asked Amelia Bedelia. "A rope ladder," said Heather. "Great," said Holly. "We could pull it up after us and be completely on our own, like we were on a desert island." "We could have windows," said Heather. "A telescope," said Holly, "so we can see what's happening all over town." "A hammock," said Heather, "so we can lie in the sun." "A roof," said Holly, "so we can rest in the shade." "A slide for getting down," said Heather. "Or a pole for sliding down," said Holly. "It's perfect," said Heather, "even though you found it by accident, Amelia Bedelia." "It wasn't that bad of an accident," said Amelia Bedelia, rubbing her sore elbow, "and it was totally worth it." Chapter 3. Big Idea, Big Trouble. At dinner time, Amelia Bedelia let her parents in on her idea. She could tell that it was a great idea by how much she was waving her arms as she told them all about the new club, the vacant lot, and the plans for the treehouse. Waving arms always meant something exciting was about to happen. But for her parents, Amelia Bedelia's waving arms were a warning, setting off alarm bells, buzzers, and whistles. "We'll have a rope ladder to get up into the treehouse," Amelia Bedelia said. "We'll have a telescope and windows and a hammock and a balcony. Won't it be great?" She took a big bite of her chicken drumstick and beamed at her mom and dad. "Well, sweetness," said her mother, "I must say—" But she didn't say anything. She looked over at her husband, and they arched her right eyebrow in secret parent code. Then she added, "This plan sounds— what's the word I'm searching for, honey?" Amelia Bedelia's father put his fork down. "Unbelievable," he said. "I knew you'd like it," said Amelia Bedelia. "It's perfect for us." Her father tilted his head so he could look right at her. Of all the dangerous, hazardous, perilous, Amelia Badelia kept hearing "us" at the end of every word. She interrupted him. "When I said us, I didn't mean me, you, and Mom. Us 3 girls can handle it." "Ridiculous," said her father. "You girls are not going to handle anything in that empty lot," said her father. "It's not empty," explained Amelia Bedelia. "It's full of trash and stuff." "Exactly," said her father. "Honey," said Amelia Bedelia's mother, "your dad does not think this is a good idea at all, and I don't think you're going to convince him. You're banging your head against a stone wall here." "I didn't bang my head on anything," said Amelia Bedelia. "Just my elbow and my knee, and I banged them on the ground, not a wall." "You banged your knee?" her father asked. "You banged your elbow? How? Where? What happened?" Amelia Bedelia stood up and to show off her scrapes on her elbow and knee, and explained how she'd done a somersault over her bike. "Treacherous," explained her father. Amelia Bedelia sat down again. She was beginning to get the idea that "us" word were not the friends of explorers, except of course for adventurous. "Honey," said your mother, "your dad is right. That lot is no place for children to play. Look at what happened to you already. It's not safe." "I know," agreed Amelia Bedelia. "That's why we have to clean it up." Amelia Bedelia could see her parents still didn't understand, so she followed her number 1 rule. She turned to her mother and asked a question. "Aren't you always telling me we need a sense of community to give something back to where we are?" Her mother's eyebrows went up. "Pleasant Street is just a couple blocks away, isn't it? Isn't that our community?" Her mother's eyebrows made 2 tall arches. Her father put his elbows on the table and leaned his forehead in his hands. He sighed. This, thought Amelia Bedelia, was progress. Time for one more question. "Can't we give back by taking away, collecting all that junk and recycling and getting rid of the rest?" Her father sighed again. "We need to think about this for a minute," Amelia Bedelia's mother said. "Any more questions?" "Yes." "Would you please pass the kale?" She knew that question would make her mother happy. Every time her mother served kale, Amelia Bedelia and her father got a lecture about why it was so good for you, along with the helping of dark green leaves. Smiling, her mother passed the kale and watched in delight as Amelia Bedelia piled it on her plate. Her father watched carefully. The more kale Amelia Bedelia ate, the less there would be for him. Amelia Bedelia chewed and chewed. She tried not to think about what she was eating or how it tasted. Her parents had stopped eating altogether and were staring at each other. They must have been saying things in secret parent code that Amelia Bedelia had not worked out, because suddenly her mom spoke. "All right," said her mother. "You and your friends can clean up that lot. I don't know who owns it, but whoever is, they haven't done anything with it in years. I'm sure they won't mind if the trash gets taken away, but grown-ups have to be there with you." She turned to Amelia Bedelia's father and said, "Honey, I'm sure you wouldn't mind giving up your golf tournament this Saturday to help your daughter give back to the community, right?" Amelia Bedelia's father closed his eyes and made a face. He looked at the idea of giving up his golf game was even more bitter than kale. "Sweetie, you're asking a whole lot," he said to Amelia Bedelia. "Of course," Amelia Bedelia agreed. "It wouldn't be any good to clean up just a part of the lot, but don't worry. With everyone working together, I'm sure we can clean it up in no time." Chapter 4. One Man's Trash. On Saturday morning, Amelia Bedelia and her parents loaded rakes and shovels, clippers, and recycling bins into their car. First, they stopped at the hardware store to get bags for the trash and gloves to protect their hands. "You come back now," the clerk called as they walked out the door. "Okay," said Amelia Bedelia. She turned around and headed right back to the store. "Why did you want me to come back?" she asked the clerk. "Did we forget something?" "Never mind, sweetie," her mother said, coming after her. "Let's get to work." They drove to the empty lot. Once they arrived and had unloaded all of their equipment, Amelia Bedelia took a look at her parents in their boots and flannel shirts. Her dad was wearing a hat. Her mom a bandana around her neck. Amelia Bedelia looked at herself. She had a flannel shirt and a hat. "We look like lumberjacks," her father said. "Could Mom and I be lumberjills?" Amelia Bedelia asked. Her mom laughed. "We can be anything we want, since we're working hard," she said. "Here's the plan. Dad and I will move big things to the side of the lot. Tomorrow, Heather and Holly and their parents will come by with a pickup truck and haul stuff to the dump. Amelia Bedelia, you're in charge of picking up litter. Let's get to it." The first thing Amelia Bedelia's parents found was an old refrigerator. "Cool," said Amelia Bedelia. "Not so cool," said her father as he staggered past her with it. Sweat was dripping down his face. Amelia Bedelia picked up clumps of newspaper, sneakers without laces, and empty cans and bottles. She stuffed the trash into bags and dumped the paper in one recycling bin and the bottles and cans into another. "I'll take that," said her father, reaching out through the broken screen of an old TV and grabbing one of her cans. "I'm glad you brought this in today. How long has it been in your family?" Amelia Bedelia knew he was pretending to be on his favorite TV show, the one where people brought in junk from the attic and hoped to be told it was worth $1 million. "About a minute," she told him. "Well, it's certainly in great condition," her father continued. "It still has the label. Will you read it out loud for our audience, please?" "Grape juice," read Amelia Bedelia. "Right you are," said her father. "This is a spectacular squashed grape juice can. It's priceless. Congratulations." "Get the lead out, you two," called Amelia Bedelia's mother. "Oh, no. Did you find some new lead?" Amelia Bedelia asked. "She means keep working," explained her father. "We're not done." Her parents cleared away a smelly mattress and a bookcase warped from the rain. Amelia Bedelia found tires, a lot of tires, at least 12 of them. "I'm tired of tires," she sighed. "Ah," said her father, "that's because you haven't yet been introduced to the fabulous game of tire bowling." He set one of the tires on its edge and gave it a big push. It rolled and wobbled toward the end of the lot, bumped into the old refrigerator, and fell over with a thump. "Strike," he yelled. Amelia Bedelia hit another tire with her fist. "Nope, didn't hit. See if you can roll the tire and hit the refrigerator," he said. She did. Pretty soon all the tires were over on the other end of the lot. Wow, look at that pile of junk, he said. This lot has everything but the kitchen sink. Dad, what's this? Called Amelia Bedelia as she was poking a stick at something behind a scrubby bush. Never mind, said her father, coming over to look at her. That's a kitchen sink. They carried the sink over to their junk pile. Amelia Bedelia's mother was already there, leaning against the refrigerator. Amelia Bedelia and her father flopped down for a rest, too, and her mother handed them big bottles of water, which they guzzled down. I think that's enough for one day, Amelia Bedelia's mom said. They loaded the bags of trash and the recycling bins into the car and got ready to go. Amelia Bedelia ran back to the oak tree for a hug and a pat. We'll be back soon, she whispered to it. She was facing the spooky old house next to the lot, and she thought she saw movement in one of the windows. A curtain fluttered, as if someone had lifted it and then dropped it again. Was someone at home? And was that person watching them? Chapter 5. Getting a Lot Done. The next day, Amelia Bedelia's family drove back to the lot. Heather and Holly were already there with their parents, and a pickup truck was parked at the curb. We'll take the refrigerator first, Heather's dad said. The three girls left the grown-ups talking and wandered away, looking at their lot. The grass was still high, and the weeds were still everywhere, but it didn't look quite as messy as it had before. Look, there's a cat, Holly called out, pointing to a bush. Amelia Bedelia saw a flash of fluffy gray fur among the leaves. We're going to mow the grass around that bush, she said. I hope the cat doesn't run out and get hurt. Heather looked worried. Maybe we should get it to go away. How? Holly asked. Here, kitty, called Heather. Amelia Bedelia stuck a hand in the bush, trying to reach the cat's collar, but the cat hissed a warning at her. Amelia Bedelia grabbed one of the branches. She shook the bush lightly. The cat didn't move. Then Holly shook the bush, and Heather smacked the bush with a stick, rustling all the leaves. The cat rushed out, darted between Amelia Bedelia's legs, and scampered away. Let's get started, Amelia Bedelia's mom called out. Girls, that goes for you too. No more beating around the bush. We're finished, Amelia Bedelia said. We were just beating the bush to get the cat out. What? Asked her mother. Never mind. Grab your gloves and let's get to work. Heather and Holly and Amelia Bedelia finished packing up the trash. The three dads made trips to the dump, while the three moms mowed the grass and the girls pulled weeds and trimmed bushes. When the dads returned in the pickup truck, they were very impressed. This is great, said Holly's father. I think we can call it a day. Why should we call it a day? Asked Amelia Bedelia. It's a lot. I know, he said, and it looks good. It sure does, Holly nodded. We got a lot done. That's what we came here to do, Amelia Bedelia agreed happily. The lot did look great. It would be a wonderful place to build an explorer's clubhouse. The oak tree rose out of a square of smooth grass. There was no trash to be seen anywhere. There were only a few weeds left to be pulled. Let's come back next weekend and finish weeding, said Holly. She and Heather and Amelia Bedelia flopped down under the oak tree to rest. Girls, called Holly's mother, we're making one last trip to the dump. Do you want to ride with us or walk home? Walk, all three girls called back. They relaxed for a while longer, looking up. Amelia Bedelia wished she could be in the tree right now, swaying back and forth as the wind rocked the strong, thick branches and rustled the dark green leaves. Being in a treehouse would really be easy and breezy, she thought. It would be just like being a bird. Pretty soon we'll be able to break ground on our treehouse, said Heather. Don't you mean break branch? Asked Holly as she giggled. But if the branches break, our treehouse will fall down, Amelia Bedelia was worried. We don't want that to happen, like that lullaby where the cradle falls out of the tree. I always think that's a scary thing to see a little baby. Don't worry, Amelia Bedelia, Heather said. I'm sure no cradles will fall out of trees, and I'm sure our treehouse will be very safe, too. Let's go get a snack. I'm starving. We can go to Pete's Diner on the way home, Amelia Bedelia said. The girls got up and walked towards Pete's, thinking of cool milkshakes, hot crispy french fries, and chocolatey brownies. Amelia Bedelia's stomach rumbled so loudly that a man walking past on the sidewalk turned to look at her. Well, bless the blue bottles if it isn't little Miss Amelia Badelia, he exclaimed. Amelia Badelia recognized him right away. It was easy because he was the only person she knew who wore a 10-gallon hat like a cowboy everywhere he went. His name was Wild Bill, and he owned a used car lot on the other side of town. How are you, Mr. Bill? She asked politely. Mighty fine, little lady. You look like you've been hard at work. What are you up to these days? A lot, said Amelia Bedelia. Wild Bill looked alarmed. Not lots of lemons again, he exclaimed. Amelia Bedelia remembered the lemonade stand she had set up right outside Wild Bill's Autorama. Since she squeezed the juice of one whole lemon into every glass, she made a sign that read, "Lots of lemons." Wild Bill had not been happy about that. Amelia Bedelia didn't know that some people use the word lemon to mean a used car that didn't work well. No, nothing to do with cars, she promised Wild Bill. My friends and I are cleaning up a vacant lot. We're going to build a clubhouse in a tree. Wild Bill shook his head. If you can pull that off, just the three of you, I'll eat my hat. I don't think it would taste very good, said Amelia Bedelia, but Wild Bill didn't hear her. He waved goodbye and went on his way, chuckling to himself. The girls reached Pete's and stepped into the diner. Amelia Bedelia, Pete called out. Long time no see. That's terrible, said Amelia Badelia. She waved her hand in front of Pete's face. What happened to your eyes? My eyes are fine, said Pete. Just come in and sit down here at the counter and chew the fat. I haven't seen you in a while. Amelia Badelia and her friends hopped onto the tall stools on the counter, but Amelia Badelia hoped that Pete would not actually serve her a plate of fat. Yuck! She'd rather eat french fries any day. Milkshakes, please, said Holly. I'd like strawberry, said Amelia Bedelia. Vanilla, said Heather. Chocolate, said Holly. Doris, Amelia Bedelia's favorite waitress, whipped up the milkshakes and brought over 3 tall glasses. What have you been up to? She asked Amelia Bedelia. A lot, said Amelia Bedelia. I can imagine, said Doris. You're a good worker. I still remember when you were a waitress in training here. So what's been keeping you so busy? A whole lot, said Amelia Bedelia. We cleaned up the empty lot on Pleasant Street. Good thing you're cleaning up that place. It's an eyesore, Pete called from over the grill. You're right. My eyes got really sore from all the dirt and dust, Amelia Bedelia said, rubbing them. Pete shook his head and flipped a burger, smiling. We're going to build a treehouse, Holly said, and meet in it to talk about what other adventures we'd like to have, Amelia Bedelia added. Like skydiving over the Grand Canyon, said Heather. Or scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef, said Holly. What would be your best adventure, Amelia Bedelia? Heather asked. Amelia Bedelia thought about it. What would she do? She would take an airplane anywhere she wanted. Flying on an airplane wasn't really as easy and breezy as flying like a bird, but she wouldn't mind. She could pat the nose of the Great Sphinx. She could climb up a zigzaggy pyramid in the jungles of Central America and swing through the trees with monkeys and macaws. She could ride a scooter through the streets of Rome. Now that would feel easy and breezy. Come on, Amelia Bedelia, Heather urged. Tell us. I want to go around the whole world, Amelia Bedelia said. She sucked up the last of her milkshake, letting her straw make a loud slurping noise. That way I never have to stop exploring. Heather and Holly finished up their milkshakes too. We'd better get going, Holly said, jumping down. Our parents will be wondering where we are. The girls paid their bill, said goodbye to Pete and Doris, and headed home. Chapter 6. Suddenly for Sale. Amelia Bedelia slept late the next Saturday with finally snuggled up in her bed. After lunch, she hurried to the empty lot. Heather and Holly were there, standing next to a big new sign. It hadn't been there last weekend. Amelia Bedelia was sure of that. Amelia Bedelia waved from across the street. Hi, she hollered. But Heather and Holly did not wave back. When she reached them, Amelia Bedelia saw why. A big red sign said "For Sale" in bright white letters. "For sale?" gasped Amelia Bedelia. "Our lot is for sale?" "It isn't ours, really," said Holly miserably. "I guess whoever owns it decided it was time to sell it. But now we can't build a treehouse here," Heather sighed. "After all their hard work, it didn't seem fair." "I wish we could buy the lot ourselves," said Holly. "How much do you think it would cost? It's just dirt and grass and stuff." "And our tree," said Amelia Bedelia, patting the oak tree gently. "I got $3 a week for my allowance." Heather and Holly each got $2.50. "If we put it all together, could we buy the lot?" Holly asked. The three friends were not sure, but they didn't feel like pulling up weeds anymore. What would be the point? "Let's go to Pete's," Amelia Bedelia said. "It might make us feel better." "Back for another round of milkshakes, girls?" asked Doris. Then she saw their sad faces. "Wow, you look down in the mouth." Amelia Bedelia knew this was true. She could feel the corners of her mouth dragging down in a frown. Doris whipped up a thick, frothy milkshake with extra chocolate and poured it into a glass. She made so much that a little spilled over the lip of the glass and onto the counter. "Whoops," she said, sticking 3 straws into the icy drink and setting it down in front of Heather, Holly, and Amelia Bedelia. "That one's on me," she told them, wiping up the spill. "What's wrong?" "I think the milkshake is really on the counter," Amelia Bedelia said. "Don't worry, you didn't get any on you, but what's wrong is that somebody's selling our lot, the one we've been cleaning up for our treehouse." Pete came over and listened, and Amelia Bedelia explained about finding the "For Sale" sign. He shook his head. "That's a tough break," he said. "You girls really got the rug pulled out from under you." "Oh, we didn't have any rugs," said Amelia Bedelia. "We hadn't even started on our treehouse. But we were almost ready to start." "Maybe we'll be able to buy the lot ourselves," Holly said hopefully. "We thought if we put all of our allowances together, we might be able to." Said Pete. "I don't know about that. But if I had any questions about buying and selling some land, there's a person I'd ask." He pointed to a lady sitting in a booth. She was talking on a cell phone and had a laptop on the table in front of her. "That's Jill. She's an old friend of mine, and she's a real estate agent. She helps people buy and sell houses and land and things like that." "Things like our lot?" Amelia Bedelia asked excitedly. "Just like your lot," said Pete. "You can ask Jill anything you'd like. She's a good person. She'd give you the shirt off her back." "I don't think it would fit me very well," said Amelia Bedelia. She hopped off the stool and went over to Jill's booth, followed by Holly and Heather. Just as Jill finished her call, Pete introduced her to the 3 girls. "They've got some questions about real estate, and I told them you'd be able to help." "Is there such a thing as a fake estate?" Amelia Bedelia asked, surprised. Jill was wearing a bright green shirt. It was a pretty color, even if it wouldn't fit a girl, thought Amelia Bedelia. But she still hoped that Jill would not give it to her. That would be embarrassing. Jill also had swinging earrings in her ears and lots of rings on her fingers. "Well, real estate is just what we call houses or other buildings or land," Jill said cheerfully. "I suppose if somebody tried to sell a house or some land that didn't really own, that doesn't actually exist, that could be fake estate. But nobody would try a stunt like that with me. I wasn't born yesterday, you know." "Okay, yes, I could tell that," said Amelia Bedelia. "I can tell you were born years ago." "Okay, that's enough," Jill laughed, which made her earrings swing. "What did you girls want to know?" They explained about the lot, and Heather asked how much it would cost to buy it. "I can't say for sure," Jill told them. "That's a nice neighborhood. Lots probably sell at $2.50, maybe $3. "Great. Holly and Heather both get $2.50, and I get $3 every week." "You do? You get $300,000 every week? 100,000? How long would we have to save up our allowances just to get $1,000? Amelia Bedelia asked her friends. "Yikes," said Holly. $2.50 plus $2.50 plus 3, that's $8 a week if we saved up for a year. Jill picked up a calculator. "If you saved up for a year, you'd have $424 among you. I don't think that would be enough to buy your vacant lot." "Can we do anything else?" said Holly. "We really wanted that treehouse." "Do you know the name of the realtor who's selling the lot?" "It was on the sign," said Amelia Badelia. "I remember Victor Lee. Oh, I know, Victor, Jill said. I will keep an ear out, girls, and if I hear anything, I'll let you know. Jill tucked her hair behind her ear as she said that, so Amelia Bedelia knew she'd keep her promise.